So the Great Divide Route turns 20 this year, and since its existence, it's inspired countless numbers of people to race it, to tour it, and to even start businesses along the route. In this episode of PLP Talks, I'm going to interview Cricket Butler, who has done all three. She first encountered the route when she turned 40, convinced a friend to tour it with her, and ultimately raced it, and now owns the Whitefish Bike Retreat. We're going to talk about that transition, a close bear encounter she had on her first time racing the route, and also what it's been like to operate the Whitefish Bike Retreat, hosting cyclists from all over the world. She's an awesome person, one of our favorite people in the bike industry, and you guys will really enjoy this episode. And before we jump in, this episode is supported by listeners and viewers just like you. So if you're digging these episodes, be sure to check out the description or the show notes and consider supporting this show. For as little as $3 or $5 a month, you can keep this podcast and video podcasts on YouTube going. So with all that said, put on your earbuds or put it full screen on YouTube and pretend like you're working at your desk. It's okay, we won't tell, and enjoy the show. So you're pretty unique in that you've toured the Great Divide Route, you've also raced it, and now you operate the Whitefish Bike Retreat. Can you tell us a little bit about your first experience with the Divide Route?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's like a long time ago. I love to talk about it. It's my favorite subject. Yeah, I did it. I turned 40, and before that, I was like a big thru hiker. So like the CDT, the PCT, AT, that kind of stuff. Not CDT actually, not yet. But I just wanted to do something a little different than a long hike. And I had just gotten into mountain biking, and I had heard about this long route. And I was like, I love going from point A to point B. And I was like, I want to do that. So I turned 40, and my best friend at the time asked me what I wanted to do for my birthday. And I was want to ride my bike from Canada to Mexico. And she went with me, and she had never been on a mountain bike. I had no idea what I was doing. And we just did it. And after that, while we were on that route, I found out people were asking us like, "Oh, are you girls racing?" And we're like, "What are you talking about?" And we're just out having fun. And so I found out about the race that way. And then the next year, I kept thinking, I was like, "Oh, I can do this faster." So I did it next year in 2009 as a race. And then it just became an addiction, unfortunately. So, a good one.
Yeah. Do you enjoy touring the route or racing the route more?
Now I'm going to tell you I enjoy touring the route. And I help a lot of people every year tour the route. When I was in the racing mode, it was definitely, you're in that mode. I don't even know how I did it, to be honest with you, because now I tour it and I just love taking my time and, enjoying where I am.
Cool.
But the racing was like, it was just you. It was this driving force to go faster and longer. And yeah.
So how does one become someone that races and tours the Divide Route to owning a lodging property on it?
It's even a better question. Just pull them. It wasn't. I was kind of finished with racing, and I moved out here for personal reasons. I love Whitefish. I raced through here. I've ridden my bike through here many times. And when I moved here, I needed a job. And when you want to live in Whitefish, you have to make a job for you. Otherwise, you won't be here very long. So I wanted to do a little hostel, but I found this piece of property. You've been here. And I just fell in love with it, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And it needed a lot of work, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. There was no big vision. But I bought it. I figured out how to buy it. And then just every day it developed into what it is now. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Cool. So for people that have not been or are listening to the podcast, can you kind of describe the facilities that you have on site?
Yeah. We have a lodge. It was an old barn that we renovated. There's 6 rooms in there, so we can put like 17 people in there. And it's kind of hostel style, so it's very comfortable, very clean. It's got like hostel style bathrooms, like you don't have your own private bathrooms in each of your rooms. So that's why I call it like a hostel. But it's a pretty posh hostel if you've ever been here. And I kind of wanted it that way. I wanted people who are riding their bikes to be surprised, or if they're venturing somewhere to come in here and be like, "Oh, it's a hostel," but it's not. It's a lot more. And I don't
It's the
know.
nicest hostel I've ever stayed in.
You should not call this a hostel. And I'm like, well, the bathrooms aren't in your room, you know. And then we have a campground too. So we have 8 sites down there on the campground. And we have a bathhouse, so you have hot showers. The campground is the lodge is awesome. I love the campground too, though. And it's all trail side. So I have 28, we have our own trails on our property, like a little pump track, a skills area, camp store. We rent mountain bikes and paddle boards. We rent bikepacking gear. We help people with getting on the divide. We do shuttles, everything. Like if you want to ride the divide, just call us. We'll help you with logistics and everything. But we're also sitting on over, now it's probably like 60 miles of single track, the Whitefish Trail that spans right now outside of Whitefish. Eventually, we'll circle all around the lake and connect all these single track outliers. So, you know, we get a lot of the divide riders. We get a lot of touring cyclists because we're also on the northern tier. But we also get a lot of just touring, like a destination almost. Like people come here to ride what we have here in Whitefish, which is a huge diversity of trails.
Mhm. So, like, how did people hear about the bike retreat in the early days? Like, did you do much advertising, or how did you slowly grow, you know, that end of the business?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I got a website up, right? And then I joined ACA as a corporate member. And ACA I knew, right? Because I did their routes. I've ridden their routes. So I was like, okay, I want ACA to know about us and put us on a map maybe. You know, I don't know. And I contacted, I can't remember who it was at the time, ACA, and I talked to them and told them what we were about. And I remember Arlen Hall and there was one other guy that came up and checked us out. And then they booked some tours. And now we have several of their tours here, and their dirt touring class is out of here. And I did like a bulk mailing that year and did a little bit of print ad, but you know, most of it was internet, like people Googling you and finding out what you are. And people didn't know what were. So that first year, I pretty much did everything myself. I cleaned the rooms, I ran the shuttles, I took reservations, I did everything myself. It was enough to keep me going and keep me motivated. And the next year it like doubled, and it just keeps getting busier and busier.
So, do you get mostly new guests or return guests?
I get both. I get a ton of return guests. Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, there's this one guy, I just booked him on a trip, shuttles and lodging and all that stuff for next year and or this summer, and this is his 5th time coming back. And he's from Hawaii. So and my first guest ever, he's been back 4 times, and he's from the Netherlands.
Wow,
So,
that's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've known about your business for a number of years, and we got to stay there for the first time. I think it was last year, but it seems like this year you guys are kind of more visible on the Instagrams. Like I know that you're doing an event with Jay, the WTF Bike Explorer Summit is happening there. So has your general kind of brand awareness just increased a lot this year?
I think so. Like in the last few years, you know, I think it's increased quite a bit, and really word of mouth is huge. You know, like our guests come and they tell their friends, and then you know the people, you know, like you coming here, and you know Jay and all these other people. These events are coming now, and I'm excited to see them. Like I support them all. You know, I love kids camps and clinics. You know, the bike packing clinics we do. It just brings people in.
Cool. Yeah, one of the things that Laura and I really appreciated when we stayed there was all the really nice touches that you had. That you could tell that the place was run by a cyclist. Like you have a full-on like bike repair garage. We dug like the little electrolyte tablets on the pillows.
It's all about the cyclist. Like, I mean, I'm a cyclist at heart, right? So I built this place the way I would want it. I've traveled a lot on my bike. I've traveled a lot with my backpack. I've traveled all over the world. And, you know, all these people that helped me along the way when I needed it, I just wanted to give that back. And I just felt like this was the time. You know, I wasn't racing anymore. That wasn't my focus. I don't know. I just like helping people. So if you come here, you get spoiled.
So it looks like that you're doing more winter events in fat biking now in the snow. Is that just within this year or the last couple years?
I bought a fat bike like 7 years ago, and I started fat biking. And so around here, what I've been fat biking for all these years were like, car ruts, snowmobile trails, cross country ski areas where they would allow me. And there's a whole bunch of people now fat biking around here. There's a pretty good community of fat bikers. And so what I wanted to do was just kind of create a place for us to go where there was not any kind of skier interference. There was no conflict between user groups. And so I bought a groomer from Wildcat Groomers, which, by the way, are the best. Kent Adams is awesome. He'll help you with anything. And a snowmobile. And I had no idea what I was doing. I've never ridden a snowmobile like by myself before. So I get it off the trailer. I get it stuck in my front yard in 5 minutes. I'm like, what have I done? But my kids are teenagers. They come out and dig me out. I learned how to ride that snowmobile and groom that year with a lot of help from the kids in the neighborhood and some friends. And what I did last year was really, I couldn't promote it until I knew what I had. And so last year was just me learning what I needed to do to make that happen. And this year I've got a small network of trails on my property that I maintain. And then we pop off. I'm not charging to use these trails. We pop off on the state land, and I just ride my snowmobile up there. And I just happen to take my roller with me and set some tracks. And we've got about 10 to 12 miles of track right now that I maintain, and it's solid.
Yeah, that seems kind of tricky because it's a trail surface that seems to be constantly changing. Like, the topography and just the consistency. How do you know when to go out and re-groom?
It's all from experience from the last 2 years. And I still struggle with it. Kent was actually here with his wife just a few days ago. And we're experimenting with like the amount of snow we have and that we deal with. We're very different from Wisconsin and Michigan and Minnesota. Their conditions are very different from the kind of snow we get. And so, I've been having some issues with packing it in and trying to remove the snow, get it out of the way. And so he was here, and of course it didn't snow while he was here, so he didn't see what I have to deal with. But it's just experience. And, when you have those snowmobile tracks or those car ruts that you were fat biking in, every day they're different. They're getting messed up. People are back there. What we have now is a consistent track that I try to run over again and again and pack it in. And I try to maintain that. And occasionally you get the car and the snowmobile that tear it up because I'm not charging for any of this. It's on state land, but it's fine. It's like it's still there. If you want to come do it.
This is our first year where we've lived in some place with winter, and kind of navigating like fat biking in the snow is completely different. A lot of it's like you said, user conflict. Like we'd never lived in a place with snow, so we didn't know necessarily it was bad form to ride in cross country ski tracks. Yeah, I posted a video, and someone read me the riot act about how I shouldn't do that. But to be fair, like at that time it was early in the season, and there wasn't the posted sign that said not to do that. Like when I went out, but I've learned.
Well, and it's just education too. It's like if we had a place that was just devoted to fat biking, you can educate people on the etiquette of using the trails. A lot of places people don't know. They grab the bikes and they go find a place where they can ride, and it's like it might not be cool, might be, but it might not be cool. So education and just teaching people where to go and how to ride and air pressure, all that is it's key, so you don't rip the trails up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One thing I've realized too is with fat biking, it looks like you can just ride on everything, but you can't. Like there's definitely like some surfaces that are better, and depending on if it's rained or if it's frozen, it's super bumpy or it's super slushy. So that terrain is kind of always changing. So I can't wait to actually ride like and experience what a groomed fat bike trail feels like.
Come see me, Russ.
Yeah.
But no, that consistency is what I was searching for, because I struggled with that too. It's like you go out for a ride and it could be really good one day or it could be really crappy one day. Or someone could have just torn up the track that you rode the day before. And so for me, I was like, well, No, I want something a little more fun. So it was kind of a selfish motivating thing. Initially, I was like, I want to go ride my bike. Um, but that groomer is amazing. Like what it has opened up, the terrain it's opened up, how much further I can get back now. It's amazing.
How about the number of divide riders? Have you seen them increase over the years, or are they plateauing, or what's that look like?
No, I don't get them. I mean, I don't get all of them here. I think most of them, come to town, but I get a lot of them. And I have friends in Banff, and they're definitely increasing every year, the amount of people you see. Yeah. And most of, you don't do the whole thing. They're going out to do sections, so I get a lot of guests that come back multiple years because they're doing sections. They might do Banff to the border to, Seeley Lake, and then Seeley Lake down to Butte or something until they get out of my, my shuttle range. But yeah, I mean, sections are huge.
Do you have any sense of like what's caused the increase in bike packing?
That's a good question. I think, when I was racing, 24-hour racing was huge, and stage racing was in huge. It seems to be like this whole self-supported, racing or touring thing is just taken off. I remember like that first year when I bike packed the Great Divide Route, there were no bike packing bags. Like it's funny because I look at the bags now and I'm like, I actually kind of fabricated something that looked like that because I was a thru hiker. I don't need to carry a lot of stuff. I carry very minimal, just what I need. Like if I don't use it every day, there's not a place for it on my bike. And when I got off of that and raced, I found, Carousel Designs, and he was making the bags. And I think Eric up in Alaska was teetering with them, It was a long time ago. I've just dated myself. But yeah, it was, that whole realm of bags and that style of traveling just opened up it's just something new and exciting for people to try, I think.
So one thing that I found really cool about the bike retreat is that you have a little store. So if people aren't fully equipped when they get there, you can sell them bags or rent them bags. For most of the people that come visit, is that their first experience with that kind of style of bags?
I think so. I have different types of people that visit. I have people that are already packed and ready to go. They have all their gear. You just shuttle them wherever they need to go. And then I have people who are trying it for the first time. And they bring all their gear and they don't know what they're doing. But the reason why we rent the bags is like before you spend all that money on those bags, they're not cheap. You got to make sure it fits your bike, and you got to make sure it fits your traveling style. Like you got to make sure you put all your stuff in there. If you're a person that likes to take a little bit more than the normal person, probably not going to work. But it's amazing to see. Like I pack people all the time. I help pack their gear, and the first thing we'll do is we'll lay it all out and we'll go through it, and we'll go through every item. Like, why do you need this? Could this thing over here be used for the same purpose as this thing? And let's get rid of that thing, and it's really a thought process on, what you really need while you're out there. Like you'll be amazed at what you don't need. A lot of people, I had this one customer or guest stay with me, and the quote stays with me. He says that people carry their fears with them. And they do. They carry everything. Like anything that could go wrong, they're taking like 3 extra things to go with them. And you don't need that. Like you just have to be prepared on, how to fix it if something does happen, So I love helping people pack and, figure out like what they need and what they don't need.
So it sounds like you get a lot of experienced bike packers and a lot of newbies. Like what are kind of those initial barriers and challenges for the newcomers?
I think their fear of the unknown. So of course the packing, they don't know what they need, so they bring everything. The fear of the routes that they're about to go out on their own, and bears are huge. Like people are scared to death of bears around here, but we help people try to figure out, to become more comfortable with it. But I think just the fear of the unknown. But anyone who has that fear of the unknown and then they're tackling something that they're not really necessarily familiar with, I think is just, you're going to succeed. Like they've already got it in them. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, let's talk a little bit about bears. Because we just moved to Montana, and that's something we're still getting used to. But you have like bears, like grizzly bears. How does one kind of mentally overcome kind of that constant gnawing fear in the back of their head?
I don't think you do. I mean, I still have it. Like, you want that healthy respect for bears, always. Like, I will never tell someone I'm not scared of bears. I'm scared of them. But I also am familiar with them, and I'm comfortable in living in the environment with them. And the biggest part of that is just be aware of them and know how to deal with them when you do see them, and be prepared. Like, I don't go out and I travel a lot by myself, but I make a lot of noise if I'm in a really big bear territory area, for sure. Yeah. So I try to prevent the occurrence of running into a bear because I don't want to run into the bear. So.
Have you ever had an aggressive bear encounter?
I did. My my first year on the Divide race, right outside of Basin, Montana, I got charged by a bear.
Oh wow! Did you have to use the bear spray?
I didn't have any. Let's learn.
You just gave them the mean stare down, and they stopped in their tracks.
Dude, I threw that bike between me and it, and just started talking to it. Like, yeah. And you see your life right in front of your face. Like, it all goes. So
what happened? So it charged, it stopped, and then did it just back off, or what happened?
Yeah, it was night. I was coming into Basin. I was trying to get to Butte that night, and it was starting to rain, and it was dusk. It was late. The daylight is long during the summer, and I came around a corner, and there was like a cliff on one side, and then there was a cliff and a raging river on the other side. And so I came around the corner. He didn't see me or hear me. There was no way. And I even had a bear bell on the bike. But like I said, that river was really loud. So I came around the corner and slammed on the brakes, and it saw me, and it came right at me. And it stopped, 25 feet from me, and, got up on its hind legs or whatever and sniffed me out. And, yeah, I saw my entire face, or my entire family my entire life go right in front of my eyes. But he dropped back down, and then he or she, I don't know, kept sniffing at me. And then they finally turned around and kept going down the road. But I had to go down that road too. Like, that was my food, and everything was down that road. But it got really dark, and so all I had was my little flashlight. And I waited until I couldn't see it anymore around the corner. And then I pushed my bike up, and then I turned the flashlight on, and I could see its eyes. And I was like, oh, man. And then I'd wait for it to disappear again. And so we played this game for about an hour in the rain. And then I went around a corner, and there were no eyes peering back at me anymore. And that was actually the most scary part of the whole thing, because I didn't know where it was. And I just got on my bike, and I flew. I mean, I was probably the quickest I've ever ridden my bike. And I ended up at that little bar. If anyone's ever ridden the Divide, they know that bar in Basin. And yeah, I ended up at the bar. Soaking wet spandex girl who just got charged by a bear. It was not pretty.
So do you think it was just checking you out, or was it stalking you, or any idea?
No, I totally surprised it. It was not stalking me. It was not aggressive. It was surprised, and it did exactly what it should do, and yeah, it was not aggressive.
Yeah. So how did you manage to mentally rally after that and keep going? Is it the beers at the bar?
I had to get down there. I mean, literally I had no food left. When you're racing, you're very minimal. You know how much food you need to get to the next point, right? And I wanted to be in Butte that night, and there's nothing in Basin. So, I really wanted something to eat. And I got down to Basin at 2 a.m, or I guess 1. There was still nothing to eat. I had a beer and popcorn at the bar. But, yeah, again, in that situation, it was me invading the bear's territory. The bear had nothing. The bear was doing what it normally does. Yeah. It was just it was like the perfect storm of situations, with the noise, the light, the environment. He had nowhere to go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It could have eaten me alive, but it decided not to. So I'm going to say it's not an aggressive bear. I'm still here.
Yeah, we saw a bear for the first time at a relatively close distance. I mean, it was a black bear, so it wasn't like a grizzly, but we were just, the trail not even a mile from here. And there's this field that usually has cows. And I was like, that's not a cow. And he kind of saw us, stood up, and then galloped off. But yeah, it's quite, it's even though they're black bears, it's still something that takes getting used to, because we'll pedal and we'll see the scat and everything. And,
Yeah. I mean, I'd rather have those kind of issues than snakes and scorpions and, I don't know. I mean, we have our dangers up here are things that can eat you, but again, if you're smart about it, it's like you don't have anything to worry. Just be smart about it and be prepared. So,
So how do you manage food in bear territory in terms of like, how do you separate it from your clothing and other stuff, so it doesn't impart smell, especially with like bike packing bags where you're kind of cramming everything in.
yeah, it's a good question. That's everyone asks that question, and I always educate people on it. There's several theories out there for sure, and it depends on where you are and how you manage your food. But around here, normally is definitely separate your food from your tenting and your clothing. And I never cook or eat where I'm going to sleep. So I always stop early, have a little meal or snack or whatever on the side of the trail. And then I love riding into the night. And so I ride into the night and find a place to camp or sleep. That's
Okay.
the big thing. And then I don't store the food near me ever.
So you do like the bear hang for all your cooking utensils and
No, because around here our trees, the branches are very weak. They're not like the big, northeast trees. It's hard to find a tree sometimes to hang something from. So what I've developed over time, and some people might disagree with it, is I just put the food on the bike. I always make sure it's airtight, like Ziploc it or double Ziploc it. And then it's always in a stuff sack that's sealable. And then I put it on the bike and I put the bike away from me. So I never sleep anywhere near the food. And then I usually put like some stones on it or something like that, so some rodent doesn't steal it. But yeah.
so which bike packing bag does the food live in?
Which what?
Which bike packing bag do you put the food? Is it in the frame bag or the seat bag?
It's in the frame bag or my little top tube snack thing. And then sometimes I carry the lunch box. I use the Ovea Negra bags a lot. We sell them here. I like them a lot. And they fit almost every bike perfectly without being a custom bag made. So you don't have to have that additional charge. But that lunchbox bag that fits over your handlebar bag is really good for food. The top two bag, I usually have food in there. And then I have food in the frame bag, and then, stuffed all over my pockets. I don't carry a backpack. I never have, never will. So I'll stuff food wherever you can,
So when you first got the property, what's the lodge building now was already on the property, right? Like what was no?
Well, there was a structure. It was
Okay.
a barn. Yep. And then the store was just a shack, and that was in the house. I live here, so there's a log cabin on the house on the property too. But the barn was renovated to the lodge that it is today, and the store was renovated. Yeah, the trails were put in afterwards. The campground was put in, the bathhouse, the sauna. Every year, I've done something to improve the property.
Do you have any other plans for additional structures?
I knew you were going to say that. I think this year I'm taking a break from projects. Maybe a little bit more trail, but I just think I want to maintain where we are right now. Yeah, I want to do more shuttles for people. I think we have just opened up 3 new shuttles that we're scheduling to Banff, and I've always done custom shuttles for people, but you needed a big group to order to pay for it. And I get all these calls all the time from people, like 1 or 2 people that want to get to Banff. There's no way to do it, and it's expensive. It's expensive for me to take you. So what I've done this year is I've organized 3 dates, and for like $150, I don't care if it's 1 person or 7, we're going to get you up there. Mm-hmm. And so so far some seats have been selling, which is great. And we're going to have a shuttle for Tour Divide racers too, to take them up before the race if they don't want to fly into Calgary and stuff like that. So, or ship their bikes. So, right. Yeah. So that's kind of new. Like I think the services, I'm going to focus on more of those this year. Mm-hmm. Maybe more teaching, the bike packing teaching. I love that. So, yeah.
Cool. What are lessons that you've learned about, like, I guess, the business end that you wish you knew when you first started?
I don't think I would change anything, because I think if I knew what I knew now, I would never have done what I did. I'm going to just say it. I did not have any knowledge of business. Like, I'm a geologist by trade. I worked in the environmental field for years, in the mining industry for years, and then I raced mountain bikes for years. And not a business person, not in hospitality, not managing people. yeah, if I had known any of that, I probably wouldn't have ventured down this path. So I think that ignorance of me not knowing some of that stuff was why this place got built, if that makes sense. Like, I built it with my passion and my heart. I didn't have a big plan. There's some things that people are like, well, why did you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I just felt right, but it worked, Yeah. So I really might not have a really good basis of why I want to do something, but I just deep down inside, I know it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's not a good plan.
Yeah, we get a lot of emails from people that are interested in starting lodging properties along either rail trails or some kind of adventurous cycling route. Do you have any tips for these, would-be business owners?
I get those calls all the time, and from people who want to do something very similar. I don't know. I just think that it's got to be your passion. Like, you're not going to get rich off of it, but it affords me an amazing lifestyle here, and where I want to live and what I want to do, and the people I get to interact with. Like, that's where my richness is. Yeah, just be prepared. Like, if people are doing it for a different reason, you're not going to make $1 million off of it. People you'll meet are just, they're friends. Like, all of my guests are friends.
Thanks, Cricket, for joining us. And if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If you have any questions specifically for Cricket, leave those in the comments below. I'll give her a nudge so that she can answer them. And thank you again, Cricket, for being on our show.
Thanks, Ross. It was good to see you again.
So that's it for this episode of PLP Talks. If you enjoyed it, if you discovered it via iTunes, don't forget to give it a rating and review. And again, if you want to support this podcast, then check out the description and the show notes and learn how you can keep this podcast going. Till next time, ride bikes, travel, and do good.